the top of the 4-meter board. But that's just spirit, isn't it? Character. The crash hit with the force of a hurricane. One moment, they were sipping champagne on a sun-drenched deck. The next, the credit cards were being declined. The hotel was threatening to call the police. And the business associates who had once bowed at their feet were suddenly unreachable. The internet, Rodney muttered. One button. That's all it took. The news hit the UK before we even got our suitcases packed. We went from being the Peckham millionaires to being those to plonkers in under 6 seconds. They had returned to a financial wilderness. Their homes, company-owned and lavish, were seized. Their old friends, the ones who hadn't invested, looked at them with a mix of amusement and sympathy. But for Mike Fisher, the landlord of the Nag's Head, the sympathy was short-lived. Mike had remortgaged the pub to follow Dole's lead. Now he was sitting in a cell, awaiting trial for embezzlement, having tried to recoup his losses by borrowing from the brewery. He's innocent, Dell insisted, though even he sounded unconvinced. He just misplaced the paperwork, a victim of circumstance. Chapter 3, The Empty Chair and the Wrong Grave. The return to Peckham was finalized by a tragedy that cut deeper than any bank balance. Uncle Albert, the man of 1,000 wartime stories during the war, had finally reached his final port of call. He had passed away peacefully in his sleep, leaving a hole in the family that no amount of gold could fill. He had been living with Elsie Partridge, his girlfriend, a woman Rodney claimed was present when the ribbon was cut at the opening of Stonehenge. The funeral was supposed to be a solemn affair. Dell, Rodney, Raquel, and Cassandra now living back in the cramped flat at Nelson Mandela House dressed in their finest black. "I feel bad," Dell whispered as they stood in the chilly cemetery. "We were off globe-trotting while he was here. We should have taken him to Barbados." "He didn't have a passport, Dell," Rodney reminded him. "He'd been around the world more times than a Russian satellite, but he never had a piece of paper that said he was allowed to leave the country. Good job Hitler didn't know that, or we'd have been in right trouble." They stood before a grave, Dell delivering a moving, if slightly improvised, eulogy about Albert's bravery in the RAF. He was a hero, Dell proclaimed to the small gathering. They called him Bunny because his name was Warren, a legend of the skies. It wasn't until young Damien pointed at a passing Spitfire and asked if his great-uncle was in it that a woman approached them. "Excuse me," she said, looking confused. "Who are you?" "We're the family," Dell said with dignity. "I'm Derek Trotter. This is Rodney." The woman blinked. "I think there's been a mistake. This is the funeral for Harold Smith. He was in the RAF. Albert. Warren's funeral is to plots over, and he was in the Navy." Dell looked at the headstone, then at Rodney. The silence was deafening. "Right," Dell muttered, clearing his throat. "Best leave it till the hearse arrives, then. Come on, everyone. Move along. Nothing to see here. Chapter 4: The Court of Broken Dreams. The legal system of the United Kingdom was not designed for the flamboyant complexities of Derek Trotter, sitting in the dock of the High Court. Dell looked less like a fallen tycoon and more like a confused magpie. The Inland Revenue was not interested in vibrant ventures or raison d'etre. They were interested in £48,754, plus interest. Rodney sat in the public gallery, his face buried in his hands. He had been exonerated of all responsibility mostly because the court determined he hadn't actually known what was going on for 90% of the time. The Inland Revenue versus Trotter's Independent Traders, the clerk announced. Dell tried his best. He spoke of foresight, of slave-like attention to detail, and of checks that were always on time, even if they did happen to bounce like rubber balls once they hit the bank. Mr. Trotter, the judge said, peering over his spectacles, "You are effectively bankrupt." Exonerated, Dell whispered to his lawyer. Bankrupt, the lawyer corrected. They returned to the flat in a daze. Raquel was waiting, her face etched with worry. "So," she asked. "No prison," Dell said, trying to find a silver lining. "Not yet, anyway. But we've got a year to pay off the debt, or they take the goods, everything of value." "Well, that won't take long," Rodney muttered, looking around the living room. "We haven't got anything of value, except this flat. And the council owns that. No one's even looked at it in 5 years because Dell had it priced as if it were a penthouse in Mayfair. I was trading on its potential," Dell snapped. "And I'm still a trader. I've been trading since I was 12. I could sell rice to the Chinese. I just need a new angle." "The firm's liquidated, Dell," Raquel said softly. "You're disqualified from running it." Dell's eyes narrowed. A familiar spark, the one Rodney feared most, began to flicker. "I'm banned from running it, but the company can still operate. We just need a new managing director, someone young, enthusiastic, someone with ideas." He looked at Rodney. Rodney froze. "No, no way. I know that look. That's the Plonker look." "Rodney," Dell said, his voice dropping into a persuasive purr. "Think about it. Legally, there's nothing to stop you taking over. Managing Director Rodney Trotter. It has a ring to it, doesn't it? Like a bell. A very successful bell." "I'd be in charge?" Rodney asked, a dangerous glimmer of ambition showing through his fear. "Sales, purchasing, finance, the lot. You'd be the boss. Rotters, I'd just be a consultant, an advisor, a significant other to the business." Chapter 5: The Managing Director's New Clothes. Within a week, the Peckham Echo carried a small, somewhat desperate advertisement: Trotter's Independent Traders. Under new management. Managing Director, Rodney Trotter. Consultancy and party planning. Marlene and Boyke, The trotter's long time